Welcome to the Forensic Financialist, where we simplify everything and choose the road that leads to wisdom and excellence. We discuss tough issues facing small business and figure out easy-to-implement solutions. Using the REAR approach, we look in the rear view to move forward towards a brighter future. Here's your host, Jeff Newkirk.
Welcome to the Forensic Financialist. I'm your host, Jeff Newkirk. This is a special episode since this is the first episode of the Forensic Financialist podcast. I'm sure you're asking yourself, what the heck is a forensic financialist? I mean, financialist, is it even in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, right? Hold that thought. Before we get into what a forensic financialist is, let me tell you just a little bit about myself and why I'm doing a podcast. It was back in the late 90s. I was in Colorado studying for my doctorate degree. Thought I'd be a professor somewhere. Well, my wife and I were visiting some relatives just outside of Denver. And I'll never forget this. One of my distant relatives and I were making some small talk. It was very pleasant. Out of the blue, she said, "We will read about you one day." I was like, "What?" She said, "Really, we will be reading about you one day because you have the potential to do something great." Well, I never forgot that, and to this day, I know I haven't lived up to it. But I think I'm making progress. And this podcast is part of that progress. We all have that someone somewhere who believes in us and is telling us that we'll do great things. But too often, we don't listen. I haven't listened, but I'm listening now. I grew up in the Chicago area, the south suburbs. Had a pretty normal childhood up until I was 13. When I was 13, I played on a baseball team, and we happened to be pretty good. I mean, seriously, we were pretty good. We went to a tournament and played teams from Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Kentucky, a few other states, and we beat them all. We won the tournament. It was awesome. Thought I was going to be a pro baseball player. But here's the kicker. My best friends that I had known basically my whole life, well, they weren't on the team, but they wanted to see us play. So they drove 250 miles to come see a game. And on the way, they were all killed in a car accident. And I got to say, that messed me up. I didn't know it at the time, nor did I know several years later. But that one event impacted many parts of my life that I didn't even realize. For years, I could never let myself have good friends. I mean, friends wanted to be good friends with me, but I didn't reciprocate. And I mean, good friends. You talk about it, all kinds of stuff. And then when I was in high school, I had friends, and I had friends that wanted to be good friends. But I just was not good to them. I mean, the subconscious is brutal. I was afraid that any good friend of mine would die. So I was afraid to have any good friends. Pretty messed up, huh? Right. So what does that have to do with being a forensic financialist? Well, we all have strengths, passions, and skills to make a positive impact on this world. That one event that happened so many years ago influenced other events that influenced other events that influenced even more events in my life. And I've always felt like I wasn't living up to my potential because I wasn't. And it goes back to that one event that happened so many years ago. Well, here's my chance. So let's do this. I founded the company PEM Consulting Group with the intention of helping as many business owners, entrepreneurs, organizational leaders, and those striving for improvement as possible. I want to positively impact others. I mean, not like one or two people, lots of people. When starting the company and deciding on the forensic financialist direction, I was steadfast on making some core values reflective of me as a person and what I aspire to and what I want my firm to represent. We all need core values. I mean, if you don't have core values, contact me. Let's talk. It's the foundation of what makes us who we are. So, to get to know me a little bit better, here are mine. First, serve others. We are not on this planet to serve ourselves. We are here to help others, help our world get better, not ourselves. 2, never stop learning. Be a lifelong learner. Once you stop learning, personal growth comes to an end. Read, take classes, educate yourself. 3, be faithful. You must have faith in a higher power. If you believe in God, awesome. If not, seek your higher power. Mine is God. That faith keeps us grounded. 4, maintain integrity. You know that in a Reader's Digest poll that was conducted several years ago, 96% admitted to lying. That's right, 96%. You're only as good as your word. 5, be accountable. If you say you are going to do something, well then do it. Actions should equal talk. 6, remain humble. Humility seems to be absent these days. If you're a good person, awesome. Don't shout it out. If you hear someone talk about how good they are, well, guess what? They probably aren't. Let your actions speak for themselves. 7, provide compassion. The world needs it more than ever. The world is a melting pot. Learn from the differences that we all have. Get educated on what you don't know. Help those in need. It's simple. Hate is bad. Serves no purpose. Be compassionate. So, those are my core values. And like I said, you need to have some too. It's not hard to determine what they are. In fact, if you have to think about it for a long time, it's probably not a core value. These are principles that guide your everyday life. You might be asking now, well, why a podcast, Jeff? What are you going to get out of doing a podcast? Well, it's not for me. In every single podcast I do, I absolutely must provide at least one meaningful takeaway for you, the listeners. I mean, if I don't, you won't listen. We're all busy. We don't have much time. If you don't like what you're listening to, you're not going to continue to listen. If I just talk about financial spreadsheets all day long, well, how entertaining and thought-provoking will that be? Not at all. So, why a podcast? To positively impact others. To make sure I am working to fulfill that expectation that a distant relative had for me so many years ago. Okay, now let's talk about Forensic Financialist. What does that mean? Let me start by telling you what it is not. It is not a forensic accountant. A forensic accountant has a very important role in providing investigative results regarding a multitude of financial reporting discrepancies that may or may not be disputed or even litigated. It's a critical role, and it helps assure that companies follow GAAP, those generally accepted accounting principles. Remember Enron? Yeah, forensic accounting grew in need after Enron. I mean, integrity? Not so much with Enron, right? What I want to do is provide an easy-to-use methodology for business leaders that will help them better understand their business. Nearly 60% of all business owners don't feel confident in their finance and accounting skill sets. I mean, that's okay, but they do need to know some of the big picture stuff. And that's what I want to help them with. It's not the debits and credits, and it's not running IRR calculations, but rather figuring out how the business is performing and how they can make it better. Okay, how am I going to do that? What simple approach can there possibly be to assessing a business? Well, I was driving through rural Missouri one day, and I was driving too fast, and I passed a Missouri State Patrol. I looked in the rearview mirror, and I thought, okay, this is it. I looked back again, and then I adjusted my speed as I went forward. Wait a minute. I looked in the rear view to see what was behind me. I adjusted my speed, and then revised my future outlook. In other words, I drove the speed limit because I didn't want to get a ticket. That was it. Use the REARview Mirror approach to see where you've been as a company to plan for a better future. Okay, stick with me now. Even better, let's spell it out so it's easy to remember. I mean, the simpler the better, right? R, review what's going on in your business. We need to know where we're at. And then we're not going to make it complicated. We're going to make it simple. And we're going to talk about that. E, examine some of the details so you know how you got to where you are and why. A, adjust what you need to in order to improve future outcomes. And then R, revise the big picture and realize those better outcomes. Rear view. There you have it. Super simple, and it's going to be easy to apply, and we're going to do that. Okay, so that's a wrap for today. I hope you got at least one nugget out of today's podcast. I'm so grateful that you listened. Now, make your today better than your yesterday, and know that your tomorrow is going to be even better than your today. Peace.
You've been listening to the Forensic Financialist, where we simplify everything and choose the road that leads to wisdom and excellence. To learn more about Jeff, visit his website at pennbusinessconsulting.com or email Jeff at jnewkirk@pennbusinessconsulting.com. Mentioning this podcast will get you a complimentary discovery session with Jeff. Until next time.